Welcome to Montana's Commercial Real Estate Podcast. I'm Julian.Scurci here with my colleague Daniel.Miller at SVN Pure West, Montana's only commercial real estate firm that possesses both local knowledge and a national network. We decided to build this podcast because we both believe there is a tremendous opportunity in Montana, and we're surprised that there was not a show that interviewed business leaders, policymakers, and regional experts. This show seeks to be an exploration of the state of Montana's real estate market, business environment, and serve as a learning opportunity for us, the guests, and the audience. All right, welcome. Welcome listeners, welcome audience members to Montana Commercial Real Estate Podcast. Thank you for your participation and attention. Today, Daniel and I are joined by Dr. Jeff Michael. He is the director of the Bureau of Business and Economic Research at the University of Montana. He has decades of experience in regional economic forecasting, public policy analysis, environmental economics, including the impacts of the Endangered Species Act, climate change, and the regulation of land use, infrastructure, property values, and employment growth. Dr. Michael, Jeff, welcome to the show. Thank you for your time.
Heck of an introduction. I love it.
You have quite a lot of material of your research online, so it gave me a lot to work with in terms of finding about your bio. But it sounds like you're based in Missoula, Montana. Is that correct?
Yeah, coming up on my 1-year anniversary here in Missoula at the University of Montana. It's been a great experience.
Awesome, and you were also doing economic research at other institutions before that, before you made the move to Montana. Is that right?
Yeah. I was 16 years in Northern California with the University of Pacific and Center for Business and Policy Research there, and was in Baltimore, Maryland before that. So a bit traveled, but Montana feels good.
Awesome. And we'll share with the audience, full disclosure, Jeff and I are proud alumni of Hamilton College. So shout out to the Continentals, which is how we were able to connect. But I'm curious, Jeff, can you tell us maybe a little bit more about your background, about how you got into your craft of economic research and what you most like about it, and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, well, I studied economics at Hamilton College and enjoyed it quite a bit there. And while most of my classmates were headed off to Wall Street to become bankers, I decided to go off to the woods and study economics. Initially, going up to Maine, and just kept studying and getting degrees. But I always had an applied outreach orientation. I got a PhD and never intended to be a professor. I was more interested in being an analyst and doing public policy and business stuff. And so I found a way to sort of work within universities in an outreach and in a research mode all these years. And then getting back up to Montana now sort of satisfies that urge that I had, back in the 90s when I chose to go to Maine instead of Wall Street. Now I feel quite at home. My wife's from small towns in Maine, and we enjoy kind of the Montana outdoorsy vibe, and the small cities here sort of reminds her of home, and we fit in real well.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So, Jeff, tell us about the BBER. For those who aren't really familiar with it, give us an overview of what it is and what the BBER's mission is.
Yeah, so the BBER's mission, I can't recite it by verbatim, but basically our mission is to inform the people of Montana about the economy in which they live and work, and be responsive to the stakeholders from business owners to legislators with information and analytical needs about economic trends. So in that sense, we're sort of a think tank / consultancy with a base here in the University of Montana. This research center was founded 75 years ago, so we're pretty well established. We're one of the oldest organized research units here at the university in the state. So I'm inherited quite a legacy in that sense. One of the things we're best known for is if you're in Montana in the winter, we do a statewide economic outlook seminar. We travel all around in the winter, half-day seminar, 9 cities throughout Montana, where we cover the economic outlook for the new year with a Montana perspective. We do deep dives into specific industries from real estate to forest products and agriculture with our partners at Montana State. Some local industry stuff and a theme every year. Last year we talked about how AI could affect the Montana's economy. It looks like this year we might be talking about sales tax and whether it's time for Montana, which is one of the 5 states without a sales tax, to consider some tax reform there and some of the issues related to that. So each year we sort of pick up a topical thing, something that people are talking about, and try to shed some more light on it, some more information, so that people can make better decisions and have an informed discussion of what things are like going forward. So that's one of our big public-facing things. We do sort of mini versions of that in the summer, and then we just do research on lots of a broad variety of issues. Tourism's been coming up a lot lately. I partner a lot with our Institute for Tourism and Recreation Research. It's sort of been the fastest growing industry in Montana, and by some measures is sort of the largest industry in terms of bringing outside dollars into the state, a basic industry now. So there's quite a bit on that. We're doing research on short-term rental markets. So we'll be doing in the near future. We're looking at other aspects of the visitor economy, supporting some feasibility studies for some potential new museums and visitor attractions here in the state, and so we can support market research, policy research, anything that's sort of forward-looking about the state's trends.
Oh, that's interesting. So if they wanted to find out about what you have coming up next year, would they just visit your website to find out the schedule for these forward-facing symposiums?
Yes, yeah. The symposiums, usually we start right out after MLK week, and so we start in late January and go into early February. So we go to the 7 largest cities every year, and then we in January and February we start in Helena, we end in Kalispell at the end of that tour, and then in March we head out to more remote communities in eastern Montana. So this year we'll be heading out to Havre. Last year, all the way to Sydney on the North Dakota border. So it's quite the tour, especially in the middle of winter. It's interesting travel.
Yeah. Jeff, is in doing your research, given that your background as an academic, but also as a economic researcher and forecaster, are the topics that you're selecting, are you driving that out of your own intellectual curiosity? Is it presented to you by different business trade groups or policymakers? How you decide which issues to tackle or to dig into?
Yeah, it's a combination of such. So here at the Bureau, I can tell you that financially, like any operation, we've got to pay the bills. About 25% of our funding sort of comes from the state as general support. The other 75% comes from grants and contracts and sponsors, right? So we are, people come to us looking for information and research, and we do that kind of sponsored research so we can be directed by being hired. And then to some extent, we are able to try to discern what's of interest to people and fits our personal skill sets and get into that. And we do get some funding just from general sponsorships and admissions to our events and stuff. So I'm starting to dig into the sales tax issue, and we'll probably be doing some seminars on that. And for that's not because we've been hired, it's because it's probably the number one question I've been asked when giving presentations and seminars around the state. So a lot of discussion around it, and we think we have the ability to bring some data and some analysis to bear to help people think about that issue a bit more. And personally, I'm kind of undecided on it, so it also makes it interesting personal thing for me to discuss, and I can bring data to it. I can bring academic research. I can bring some personal experience from sort of living and working in other states and that have different systems than we have here in Montana.
Maybe just digging into that sales tax issue for a moment. In your opinion, has there been surprises on what industry trade groups have either been for or against the proposed legislation, as well as have you in your research discovered are there certain consequences of having a sales tax versus a state income tax, and about how states look at funding their programming?
Yeah, well, I'm just on the front end of this. I was talking about a topic selection that we're going to get into this winter. I'll tell you what, the thing that drives interest of it in Montana is the growth of the tourism and visitor economy. And usually it's pretty typical to see like tourist heavy states like Nevada and Hawaii and Florida, right, to be heavily sales tax driven, and it's a effort to sort of export some of that tax burden, or to get the visitors that are using the public services to contribute more. As Montana's economy has changed and the visitor economy has increased and become more important, we have more and more people coming through here each year. That's actually what's driving a lot of the interest in it. That the economy has changed over 40 or 50 years, and maybe we need to change our tax base a little bit because the states become pretty highly reliant on property taxes, and there's so some of it's coming from how can we fund some property tax relief. Some of it's coming from this desire to sort of adjust our system to take advantage of the visitor economy. But it's I don't think we should be too quick to do that. I have to say, one of the many pleasures of moving to Montana is going into a bar, and first of all, the beer costs $6, and most of your better breweries in Montana, and then your tab comes back and it's $6, right? It's not $6.48 or whatever. You take your wife out on Friday night, that's quite a savings, and take your kids out to get those new clothes for the school year. It can be a difference, and it's enjoyable. So we shouldn't be too quick to move on that, to become like the others, so to speak. But at the same time, we have to think about changing times and changing economy, and how to adjust, because the same forces of change have put a lot of pressure on real estate markets and put a lot of pressure on property taxes too. So we have to think about all options.
Definitely do see a lot of Montana license plates on vehicles outside of Montana for that reason. With the sales.
Well, and that's something you have to consider too, right? There's been like this little pocket industry of probably particularly RVs and exotic cars that a lot of industrial space in Montana as commercial real estate guys, you're probably aware, is filled with RVs and exotic cars. And wintertime here, I've come to learn that it's an advantageous place to buy those expensive items, and there's a whole and it drives some of our business registrations data in the state too. Right.
Earlier, you had mentioned about tourism and about basic jobs and non-basic jobs. So for our listeners, just so they know, there's two types of jobs. There's a basic job and a non-basic job. Basic job adds to the economic base of microeconomy in an area. Means it brings outside money into that area. Non-basic job recirculates money within that economy. Both obviously are highly needed for every economy. But outside of tourism, what are your larger pools of basic jobs, and what sector do you see needs the most improvement?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the big historic basic jobs in Montana were the big resource sectors, right? So mining, agriculture, and wood and forest products, all of which are still large and important industries in the state. But when I say that sort of tourism, which is not a little more vaguely defined than those, but it surpassed those sort of big three in its prominence. All those sectors have wood products is actually the one that's declined quite a bit over the years. The forest products industry has really shrunk in the state. Missoula is probably more visible here than anywhere else in this state in terms of the change in the presence of that particular industry. As a share of the state economy, agriculture is pretty big. I came from actually ag country in California, where ag is the biggest in the country, but as a share of the economy, it's actually bigger in Montana. It's quite an important sector here, and an important part of the heritage. And the same could be said for mining. Mining's up and down. It really, follows commodity markets, but Montana economy took a big hit last year with the palladium market is sort of really weak, and massive layoffs at Siboney-Stillwater, which is probably the biggest sort of industrial employer in the state. So they've really curtailed their operations there, but mining has a long legacy here. Hard rock mineral mining, copper mining, coal mining, a variety of things. Increasingly, we've got. It's not going to impress a Californian at this state, but we are sort of growing a little bit in the technology and services sectors. There's an interesting kind of photonics cluster burgeoning around Bozeman. There's some interesting growth in various technology sectors. Kalispell's got an interesting tech manufacturer up there that's sort of unique for being out in a relatively small city, so there are some other particular areas, but yeah, the traditional base of Montana is still there in these resource sectors, and a lot of Montana's public land too. So we've always historically in our bureau we've pointed out that the federal government is actually a basic industry in Montana because of the huge amount of federal land and tribal land, and so we actually have larger a couple of big military bases. So there's quite a big federal government feature. We're not Virginia or Maryland or something like that, but in terms of typical Western states, it's important here.
Along those lines, Jeff, in your, for a larger state land-wise that has pockets of population concentration, have you noticed some interesting trends about how certain industry sectors have been concentrated in certain parts of the state, and maybe perhaps there are multiple Montanas within Montana in terms of both the interests for certain policies or that would help support, a certain regional enclave for an industry?
Yeah, there are definitely differences across them. We've started sort of dividing our work into kind of 8 economic regions. This sort of activity is always a little dicey whenever you start drawing lines on a map, and there's gray areas, but areas where we've seen distinctiveness, right? So the biggest growth areas in the state have been the sort of national park counties up in Flathead County and down in the Gallatin-Bozeman area that have really been driven by people's sort of interest in outdoor recreation. But even in those communities, both of them having a lot of growth driven by their natural beauty and resource amenities. It's quite different, right? So Flathead is attracting an older population and more retirees, whereas in Gallatin County, that's the youngest county in the state, it has more families, and so they actually look quite a bit different demographically, but they're both in some ways attracted to the same sorts of environments. Wood products is still a big employer up in the Kalispell region. In addition to tourism, there's more active forest land up there. Weyerhaeuser has a big presence, for example. Missoula is sort of the Montana version of a Meds and Eds economy here to the south. We have places that are a little more industrial in nature, like Great Falls and Billings, with refineries and manufacturing playing a bigger role. Everyone needs to go to Butte because Butte has the most interesting history and a really vibrant community. Historically built around the mining sector, right? So it's a great mining town, and you see the huge copper mines just when you drive into town. Still a big industry there. Headquarters of Northwestern Energy, the biggest utility in the state. So that region has a bit more of a emphasis and dependence on sort of that historic mining industry, which hasn't grown a lot lately. So, Butte hasn't been a growth center lately, but that's still a big part of its economy, right? Helena's the state capital. So they all have a little bit of a different, and so there's more kind of a government influence there. So, and then Eastern Montana is certainly, agriculture and energy, oil and coal mining, as well as lots of agriculture, which can vary depending on the location you are. So, yeah, I mean, that's sort of a tour of economic regions, but they all are a little different. They're all a little different, but they're all Montana, and what they share is you go there and they're all connected to nature, and the people that live there have a great love of the outdoors and getting outside. But the jobs that they do and what drives the dollars in the community can really vary a little bit from place to place.
Fascinating. And as Daniel and I, being commercial real estate practitioners, our industry is very much a derivative of either population growth or economic growth and the migration trends around that. In your research, have you seen sort of different dispersions on population trends or inbound or outbound migration trends for people and jobs to certain parts of the state that have surprised you?
Yeah, what surprises me? Well, Montana's been a growth state, and historically, growth states of the U.S. have been in the Sun Belt. We're up here, in the north and the Canadian border, but for the past 20 years or so, it's been experienced pretty steady growth. Hasn't always been true. If you go back decades and decades, the 80s were pretty rough on Montana. Hasn't always been attracting people. There's still, the population is a little over 1.1 million, so it's been steady growth, but I would say not explosive. But fastest growth has been certainly in those national park counties in the past 5 or 10 years that I've mentioned, both even pre-COVID, were the growth centers of the state. Is it surprising? I don't know. People are very amenity driven. Those are the places they most likely visited in Montana, right? People start with the national parks, then they sort of spread out a little bit and learn more about the rest of the state. Missoula and Helena have been growing, but not quite at the pace that you've seen in Flathead and in the Bozeman area. Things have been a little slower in Great Falls and Butte and Billings, but none of them have turned into a decline. And there's been some ups and downs, particularly in the far eastern part of the state with the shale oil boom up and down. That sort of happened a decade ago. But surprises, things are slowing down a little bit, particularly in Gallatin, Bozeman County. I think just the price of real estate has gotten a bit prohibitive, and cost of living there for a lot of people. We've seen in the migration figures a little bit of movement of Montana residents out of some of these more expensive areas and starting to look at areas like Butte and Helena, sort of the secondary things, not uncommon, right? I mean, it's a little bit like Bay Area people moving and looking at Sacramento. It's sort of like where can I still be in this state and be close to what I love, but maybe have a little bit lower rent or a house I afford to buy a home. And so we've seen a little bit of movement, but some of the movement into those, if you will, I don't want to call them second tier, but they're second tier when it comes to home values, has actually come from in-migration within Montana. And some of these faster growing areas still tend to get the more likely to attract the newcomers. Other surprises demographically. Montana's have very low international migration. I mean, it's not Miami or San Francisco or New York. I wasn't expecting it to be huge, but it's actually historically been very low in Montana. Migration and immigration has been a big demographic issue in the country in the past 3 or 4 years. Huge ups and downs and controversy surrounding that. And Montana is not as impactful as you see in other areas, just because we haven't really had those big flows from international migrants here.
So over the past 20 years, your net migration into Montana has been relatively the same, between 6,000 and 9,000 a year-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Exception of 21 and 22. Obviously, we had COVID over those 2 years. Your migration pretty much doubled those years.
Mm-hmm.
In your population metrics, you're seeing people influx and outflux of Montana. Are you seeing most of those people are sticking around and becoming long-term residents, or a lot of them, are they migrating back to where, their home base was?
That's a good question, actually. I think that would be a bit more of a micro question to dig into. I can't say that I have a definitive answer of that. It's something I've been curious about. I have not heard anecdotally a lot of stories about this, but we know, like with the COVID migration, right? The ability to bring your job with you was part of that movement to Montana. It's like, I always wanted to live in Montana, and heck, we went remote, and I could just take my job with me now, right? And that fueled some of the movement. We've seen big employers push back against that now. So I think that's definitely been one of the factors that stemmed the inflow when you have, Chase Bank and Amazon and federal government saying, back to the office, we don't want you working from there anymore. That's definitely, or just making it a little less comfortable. That's stemmed a little bit of the inflow, which was a bit overwhelming for a while for people in Montana. Has it caused people to shift out to the other side? I actually haven't heard a lot of stories of that. I've heard a few stories of people sticking around and finding something else to do, or consulting, or starting their own company. Or finding a Montana employer. I haven't heard too many stories of people saying, I got called back to Seattle. I'm leaving Montana.
Well, when you can sit on a ski lift on a Zoom meeting, it kind of makes you never want to go back home, right?
Yes. Well, that's true. Although most ski lifts in Montana don't have good Wi-Fi coverage, Daniel. There's a few. I won't name resorts here, but.
Yeah, keep those yourself.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah. Interesting.
I don't want the rest of the world to know that you can get $68 lift tickets out there. It's a local secret.
We'll have to take that conversation offline.
Yeah.
Jeff, you mentioned that there are certain hubs of emerging industries or economic clusters. You mentioned a photonics industry in Bozeman. Have you seen other sectors in different parts of the states that are really become kind of anchors for a locale? And also with that, have you found some, in your research, different groups saying that there's either a lack of skills or that they need certain talent to move into the state to help, with this, burgeoning employment base? What's some of the information you've seen around that?
Workforce challenges are a big issue in Montana for expansion. I think it's something that probably prevents some types of investment here. It's certainly because our communities are smaller. I mean, maybe we'll get General Motors to reshore all over the United States. They won't be coming to Montana because that's just sort of the communities here can't have a very hard time supporting any kind of activity at that scale, whether it's workforce and in infrastructure. In fact, if you look at like the job openings to unemployed people data, I think we've got one of the highest ratios in the country. I think there's 2 advertised open jobs for every sort of person looking for a job in Montana. It's not as bad as it was 2 or 3 years ago, where employers would say, I post a job and I get 0 applicants. You just couldn't find anybody. It's employers are telling me that it's gotten a little better. That not the way it used to be, but they're able to find some workers. Skills can be an issue depending upon the industry. I think we try to be responsive to that. There's other people here at the University of Montana that I can connect anybody to that help build those programs and attract and want to be responsive to those skills needs of employers. But it is it's a challenge everywhere, including here.
Interesting. And Jeff, given that your world is research and you're so data driven, what are some of the ways, methodology wise, that you're conducting research? Are you doing proprietary surveys? Are you going to certain public and private data sources? How are you able to formulate some of your research with your data collection methods and find out the answers to some of these questions?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. A lot of the data that we use is a lot of the public available data that everybody uses, right? We're heavy users of it. We know where it's at, and we feel like we understand it and can interpret it, better than a lot of people. Having said that, within the Bureau, we actually have our own survey research house here, and sometimes we do custom surveys. We have a very high standard of that, and we've done a lot of interesting surveys just since I've been here. We've actually been doing quite a lot of recreational things, so economies around fishing and hunting and the big outdoor recreation in this state. It's an economic driver and part of the quality of life. So we've done to do studies of these types of activities. We've done detailed surveys of fishermen. We've done detailed surveys of Grizzly football fans. We're getting ready to do one of landowners. There's questions about land access for hunting, as well as access to public lands. And so we're getting ready to do some landowner surveys for specific research associated with that. I'd be interested in talking with you offline. I'm starting to dabble and occasionally look at some other types of data that are out there. Right now, I'm not a heavy user of things like credit card transactions data and things like that. But we're starting to look more at some of these sort of private data sources and relative to banking data, payroll records, and these sorts of things that are more widely available now and may become more important in the future. In the world of real estate, I'm having to adjust to being in a non-disclosure state. I do more residential than commercial stuff, right? So some of the things I'm used to using in my research aren't as widely available here, like what did that house sell for? You don't know. working and understanding how to work in that environment a little different too.
Well, we'll definitely talk more offline, but we have some access to some interesting real estate data, and we'd welcome a chance to provide that to you and speak more about that.
Sure. Okay, that'd be great.
Daniel, do you have any more? I know you have some thoughts on closing questions of how we ask all our guests how we end things up. But are there any other topics you wanted to touch on before we wrap up the show?
Just be a little bit more candid. If the university gave you a day off tomorrow, and you had so say we're on a Tuesday and Wednesday, the university gave you a day off tomorrow, you have a complete free day. What's the first thing you're doing? Besides sleeping
in. Besides sleeping in, yeah. What's the first thing I'm doing? I'm taking. I'm probably taking my dogs out to Blue Mountain or Rattlesnake for a good, a little longer than the average neighborhood dog walk. Right? I love it. If you just love getting out and walking with your dogs, right? And you want to take them off the leash. That's what I just love here. I just go out with my dogs. There's some places you can go off leash here, and just let them run and enjoy it. And other places I've lived, you had to kind of be constrained with your puppers. So I got 3 of them. That's the first thing I'm doing is going out and hitting the trails with my dogs.
That's great. Some outdoor therapy for sure.
Yes, yeah.
Since you're a relatively new Missoula resident, are there some spots that you and your family are really become your go-to spots? Either a family favorite restaurant that you want to shout out in Missoula, or a hiking spot that you really appreciate?
That's a tough one. Missoula dining scene's been good for us. We we like it. When the out of towners come, we like to take them to the Lolo Creek Steakhouse in Lolo and get a true Montana steakhouse experience. It's an institution that I recommend just south of town. But Missoula's also has some fun places to go downtown. Port Rouge French restaurants outstanding. And probably the best thing though is the brewery scene in Missoula is top tier. I'll tell you. I haven't even had a chance to get to them all, but you just start naming them off, and from Highlander, Kettle House, Tamarack, Draftworks, Great Burn, Bayern, Oktoberfest was my choice last night. Goes on and on. So, come to Missoula, take 2 weeks, and you might get through the breweries.
Sounds like you have a future economic report to do on the burgeoning microbrew industry in Montana.
Yeah, I do think we may have hit capacity in that particular market. It's but we might see a few of the weaker players slip out, but I haven't found too many weak players around here yet, and so far I'm doing my part to keep them in business. So.
Sounds like some very hands-on research. I appreciate that.
Indeed.
I have the Lolo Steakhouse menu pulled up on my phone. As soon as we get off this podcast, I'm looking it up.
All right, go ahead.
You get hungry.
Go ahead. Yeah. I recommend the ribeye. Yeah.
Lolo Steakhouse proprietors, if you're listening, we welcome your sponsorship for the show. Look forward to having you on. Thank you for your support.
They also have a little distillery next door. So while you're waiting on your table, you just climb up the hill, and the kids run the distillery. So with a nice view of the Bitterroot Valley. So I recommend that.
Right on. That's great. Jeff, what I guess our closing questions, or just some more personal questions, outside of your work and economic research, what brings you joy in life? What do you most like doing with your family and friends?
Oh, other than going out and running with the dogs and out and I don't know. I mean, I just love exploring this great state. So it's just been great to get into more of an outdoor environment. We really we just really enjoy getting outside and hiking around this state. So Yeah, and our endurance word is growing. I was a little out of shape when I showed up here, but now I'm looking for 10-mile hikes instead of 5-mile hikes, and it's so it's been a good experience, a healthy change.
Right on. And given your curious mind and your vocation, is there anything that you're really enjoying reading right now? That either a book related to economics and research, or other areas of interest for you that you'd recommend?
Yeah, the great reading. I know I spend way too much time reading data and spreadsheets and current events.
I
So
was going to say
I
spreadsheets and
yeah. So I'll probably give you a bad answer to that. I will tell you that there's a couple of books about the history of the kind of the Copper Kings and the Anaconda mining company that I think are what have been recommended to me, and I've just sort of started reading those as if you want to learn about the sort of the history of the state as well as its sort of economy and be entertained. That's a good place to start.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff, in our closing, for people who are interested either as a business to partner with you on economic research or to learn more about research that impacts their business and study on the state, how do they find you? How do they get in touch with you? And how do they learn more?
Yeah, so you can find us online at BBER at the University of Montana. I would screw up the URL. Our Outlook events are economicoutlookSeminar.com. That's it, no Montana in it. And you can see some of our seminars that are coming around the state. So that's a great way to meet us, register, come in and listen to our talks, or reach out directly if there's anything that we can do to help you out or help you answer a question that you might have about the Montana economy.
That's great. And do you have an email address you want to share with the audience?
Sure. Yeah, they can email me at jeffrey.michael@mso.umt.edu.
Right on. Well, Jeff, Dr. Michael, it was a real pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today. We really enjoyed learning about the state of Montana with you. We look forward to keeping in touch, and thank you to our audience for listening.
All right. Thank you, Julian and Daniel. Great to talk to you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
This show is for information and educational purposes only. It is not a solicitation to buy or sell real estate, securities, or any other investment. The views reflected in this show are solely those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of SVN Pure West, SVN Inc., or any other business or organization mentioned. If you'd like to contact the show's hosts, you can do so by email at Julian.Scurci@svn.com and Daniel.Miller@svn.com, or by visiting svnpurewestcre.com.